This is the Nutters Club, thanks to New Zealand On Air on Newstalk ZB.
Well, I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. Just like me.
Good evening and welcome to the Nutters Club, the show that talks about your mental health every Sunday night and Monday morning. My name's Hamish, Coleman-Ross, and a very, very warm good evening to you wherever you might be. Oh, geez. What a week it has been all over this show, especially when it's come to some of the mental health news as well. It was shocking earlier in the week, wasn't it, when we finally got told that perhaps the amount of money that had been spent from the $1.9 billion in the budget was 9/10 of bugger all.
Two beds.
Two beds. Now that dulcet tone coming in there is none other than my psychotherapist, your psychotherapist, Kyle MacDonald. Kyle, good evening.
Kia ora.
Now, to our guest tonight. We've had him in the studio before, and so it's really awesome to have him back up again. When he last came and saw us, things were different. We didn't even know what COVID-19 was. I had never heard of Wuhan. But since then, much has changed. But the best thing is, he hasn't. His name's Robbie Shepherd. He's otherwise known as the Goose Router, and a very popular online presence he has. He's back in the studio with us. How we let him back in here, I'm not sure, but he's all the way from Geraldine in South Canterbury. It's lovely to have you on, Robbie. How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. It's, living the dream. Good to be back up here.
Now, tonight we're going to be talking about a few things with Robbie, but really we'll be sort of talking around mental health, especially in the rural sector. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, Robbie. Where do you live and how long have you been there? Where's home? What do you do?
Sort of born and bred around Geraldine. Was working on dairy farms around the area, Clandy Boy, Orari and that sort of thing. So when I left, I was actually working on a dairy farm part-time before I left school. And then school just didn't agree with me, or I didn't agree with school. So I went working on the dairy farm, and that first one I was there for 5.5 years, and I just sort of progressed. So still close to Geraldine, but I'm not dairy farming anymore as such. I'm jack of all trades, master of none, truck driver, tractor driver, drive anything sort of thing.
And and doing all this, you sort of started making a bit of an online presence, and you started making some pretty entertaining videos, especially around some of your mechanical antics. So when did you start that?
Oh, I started that probably 4 or 5 years ago, and that was just one day I was in the workshop and I brought a new cut-off saw, and I did a video, and a few people, that was quite funny. So I just started doing a few more, and got a few more followers, so I kept doing them. But then, along the way of life, different things had happened, whether it was, work life, with the fire service or scouts or that sort of thing. And then, just a few things, popped up, and I just sort of started talking about life and mental health and that sort of thing. So it's just sort of grown from there to I've been asked to do different events, go out and speak at, local nights and that sort of thing about life and mental health. And the ball's sort of rolling a bit more from there to, commentating the Mackenzie Buckle Rodeo event in the next couple of months. So it's just, one of those things. What started off as a few stupid videos in the workshops, sort of got bigger to go into truck shows and, catching up with old mate Yogi off Outback Truckers and stuff like that, which is one of those things. If someone asked me 10 years ago what I thought I'd be doing now, it's like, I wouldn't have thought this. I mean, a man with my looks and intellect should have never ever got this far, sort of thing. But it's just, sometimes it's the way you word things that, can actually, have a bit more punch than reading it out of a textbook.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the first time that you talked about, your own mental health on your videos and sort of, where that ball started rolling all those years ago now. So we'll share that story with you after the break here tonight on the Nutters Club.
Nutters Club, now on Newstalk ZB.
Welcome back to the show. My name's Hamish, Coleman-Ross, and in the studio with me tonight, psychotherapist Kyle MacDonald and our guest, Robbie Shepherd from Geraldine here in South Canterbury. So look, Robbie, you were just sort of telling us about the fact that, you've ended up kind of doing quite a lot of different work, not only in your work life, but now around mental health. But let's go back to that first video that you did. You'd had a few troubles going on, with yourself and a few other things. What kind of made you think maybe you're going to put this into a video? I mean, did you worry about what the reception might have been from people?
Yeah, I did originally, and it's like everything; it just sort of bugs you, and it happened, a few years prior, and it just bugged me and bugged me. So I was sitting in the Suzuki one day, and I made a video, and I talked about it, and I hummed and hawed a bit further, and I thought, no.
What did you say in the video?
I was just a wee incident with a group that I was with that trying to think how to word that now. It was just a story of how you went through mental health. I ended up in the loony bin years ago. I'm not not proud of it, not ashamed of it, and it was just the way I was treated by this particular organisation. So I made a video, talked about it. I put it online, and a lot of people sent me messages. Shit, Robbie, we got treated exactly the same way. And it wasn't just people from around the area. It was people from New Zealand, Australia, UK, and that sort of thing that had watched the video and thought, we got treated exactly the same way, but we up and left. And it was one of those things I thought, no, I'm right here. So I fought back and won. And then I did the video of it, and then just more people come back, oh, we got treated exactly the same way, So I started making more and more videos. And then I get quite a lot of messages from different people about, sometimes it might be just a mechanical question. Other times it might be questions about life, or hey, thanks for making your videos and that sort of thing. But it was just one of those things of I've had to look in the mirror a few times, or and the camera lens as well, sort of thing. But I'm not reading what I make videos about. I'm not reading from a textbook. It's actually from life experience, and I think that's the big difference with a lot of people is being able to relate to different people in different groups, whether it's whether I go and talk to a group that are farmers or engineers or whatever. It's just each story I can tell or joke, depends on the situation, I can adapt to each group I'm talking to.
Kyle, does that kind of, what Robbie's talking about here, does that talk to that, sort of peer-to-peer support that we talk about, being able to have people that you can relate to? It's all actually about the messenger, not so much the message.
Yeah, it does. And, you're right, Hamish. We're increasingly talking about this on the show, aren't we? And I think what we're recognising is that, especially when people are getting started in their process of being able to talk about what's going on for them, it feels a lot safer to know that people have been through something similar or the same thing, to give people that sense of surety that they're going to get understood, that they're not going to get judged, that they're not going to get criticised. I think it's great, and it's a great way to get people to start opening up, which, as we know, is that's what makes a difference in the end, right?
Exactly.
Well, just on that, that's the biggest thing I think of getting people to open up. It's like if g'day Hamish, how's it going? Yeah, good, thanks. End of conversation. Where if you start a conversation in like 20 questions and ease into the topic, I think, a lot of the time I've found you actually get a better response instead of, hey mate, how's it going? Yeah, good, thanks. End of conversation.
Yeah.
Where, you ease into it and it might be, question 10 or 20, so to speak, that they actually, start having a bit of a meltdown and actually, life's a bit harder than we, that I've been letting on because they've tried to put that brave face on.
Wearing the masks.
Yeah, that's dead right.
So you opened up in this video, you started having people come and talk to you and share their stories with you. You made more of the videos. How did it progress from you just sort of, making videos in the workshop and talking about it to suddenly going and talking to people in the community? Well, tell me about the first time that happened.
I've done a bit of stand-up comedy in the past, and there's a difference between stand-up comedy and actually talking about life, because as much as you can have a script, it can all go pear-shaped as well.
This is very true.
And it's it was actually very different talking to a group about life and something that was personal and stuff that had happened, is to standing up and doing a stand-up comedy night and talking about telling a joke about going rabbit shooting on a farm and that sort of thing. And it is. I'm still getting used to it, but it is a big step, going from behind the camera to out in front of 50 or 60 people and talking about it. But the feedback that I've got afterwards, like I stand up there and thinking, I'm nervous as hell, lose my train of thought and all that sort of thing, and I'm thinking this is going really, really bad. But when people come up after, thanks for talking about it, that sort of thing, and then other people say that was cool, can you come back? I thought, okay. Maybe I was better than I actually thought I was. And that was that's the best bit about it is, then when I was engineering years ago, my father said to me, if you do a good job, they'll tell 10 people. If you do a bad job, they'll tell 20 people. But with Facebook nowadays, it's you do a bad job, your career's over sort of thing. But it's the same with, like talking about mental health and that sort of thing. If I can get the message to one person, I've achieved something. But if I can go out to a group of 50 or 60 people and one person comes back to me in a month's time and says, hey, we're doing this, another night, we want you to come and talk. Well, it's another 50 or 60 people I've got that message across to. It's only small numbers, but small numbers often is better than trying to get the message out to the wider community and only 10 people listen. So it's sort of, it has been a bit different from, instead of behind the truck seat or behind the steering wheel of the truck or the tractor, as opposed to actually getting up there and doing it live in front of people.
Yeah, well, it's instant feedback, isn't it? You definitely know if you're going well or not. Especially, it's funny, isn't it? Sometimes if you're doing that on a stage and you can see the blank look on people's face, and you're like, are they blank because they're like really listening to me, or are they blank because I suck? And you don't quite know which one. Yeah. So I applaud you for having taken it. Robbie, I've had a little text message here. It says, Cody, hey Robbie. Did you drive your Kenworth to the studio?
He's obviously on patrol around the streets of Ashburton, got nothing better to do. So,
what is this thing about the Kenworths?
It's just over the years, Bathurst, Ford versus Holden, Holden versus Ford. Yep. I did exactly the same with Kenworth. I just hate them. Hate them to work on, hate them to drive. They're uncomfortable. The old seats in some of the trucks are like two-piece.
Yeah.
And if you went over a big enough bounce, the seat would sort of collapse and your ass would, get jammed between the back of the seat and the base of the seat. And, they're just not very comfortable to work on and drive and that sort of thing. I just hate them. And it's like, I've always been...
so what do you drive?
I've always been Western Star.
Okay.
But I've been driving a couple of CH Max around, helping a friend out, and they're cool. Sound cool, look cool, awesome trucks. So, so now I'm torn between Western Star and Mac.
Oh, wow.
and the mighty Datsun sitting at home on the front lawn.
Hope that's answered your question there, Cody. In fact, actually, I can tell you, Robbie didn't drive here. I walked across the road to pick him up. He was staying at a hotel just over the road from the studio. So there you go. Robbie, we were just talking about, the fact that you've evolved from making the videos to now going and speaking to community groups face to face, and I think it is really hard for us, especially those of us who live in the urban centres of New Zealand, to have a really first-hand knowledge of what some of the pressures are that are facing our rural folks. So, can you tell us and give us some insight? What are some of the things which are really affecting, the mental health and the challenges of mental health that people in the rural areas in New Zealand have?
Sometimes it's location, and that's at the end of it. It is just pure location of being out in isolation of the country, and not having much interaction with other people unless they're in town going to Farm Source to buy parts for the farm or dog tucker or that sort of thing. So a lot to me, a lot of it is that location, but I'd say abandonment, but just isolation. And it's like farmer could get in the tractor in the morning and thinking he's right. He's got a few problems, size of a teaspoon. Sitting in that tractor all day, whether he's feeding out or cultivating or that sort of thing, just constantly thinking. By the time he gets to the end of the day, his problems are the size of a digger bucket. So it's sometimes that isolation doesn't help anyone at all. And and to me, that's half the problem is there's no help in the smaller towns. The service towns of Mayfield and Geraldine and that sort of thing. They're just some ways they feel forgotten.
When you say no help, what do you mean?
Because of that location, if you needed to end up if you needed to go to see a psychiatrist or a doctor or that sort of thing, if you're in town, it's a whole lot easier because you can make an appointment and head on down to the doctor. Where if you're out on the farm, you've got to make an appointment and try and get in there, but then hope that the rest of the morning doesn't turn to custard, and then so that you can actually get to your appointment on time. And it's like down home, the bigger centres, if you want to call them bigger centres for the South Island, Timaru and Ashburton, like they're only an hour and a bit apart. But when you're on a farm and you're you know, sweating, you know, hard day sweating and working hard and that sort of thing, and you're trying to get to an appointment, and it just, things get turned to custard. You get to the end of, what's the point?
So what you're saying is that sometimes it's just too hard.
Yeah. To try and make everything work. Getting in to see someone.
What are some of the solutions that you've seen, or some of the solutions you think need to be applied?
Oh, some of them I actually reckon would be more of, whether it's feasible or not, is a mobile health clinic sort of thing that goes around all the smaller towns. Because the bigger towns have got all these services in place, but the smaller towns haven't. So if you had a mobile clinic that went around, once a month to these smaller towns, then the people are coming to the services are coming to the farmer or to the towns, local towns, so the farmer doesn't have to, worry about getting stock fed and tractors parked up to get into town for 2 o'clock appointment. All he's got to do is drive 10 minutes down the road to the nearest wee town. And I actually reckon that would make a big difference.
You were saying before that some of the things that are affecting the rural folk are that they wake up in the morning and they might have a small problem, but it just gets larger as those thoughts rattle around our head all day long. What are some of those thoughts about? What are some of the pressures that farming's facing at the moment?
Some of those thoughts can be about nothing, but some of them, whether it's feed, enough feed, and after the weather we've had, there's a lot of farms down there that have been totally destroyed through the flooding. So they've got no feed, they've got no stock on the place, they've got no fences. Some of them have got no farms left. It's just like the riverbed. So there's not just the stresses of that, but you could be out, feeding out, and all of a sudden you get a flat tire on the tractor, and that puts you way behind. By the time you wait for the tyre people to come out and fix it, and that's just another wee stress that's gone into the bucket of thoughts for the day, and you're behind the 8 ball yet again. So any way that we can, help the farmer stay in front of the 8 ball, and by bringing services to the rural community, I believe has got to be biggest advantage out there. But it's just, sometimes it's. I remember years ago when I was on the dairy farm, having a bit of a crap day, and I was trying to do the numbers, and I was standing where the fence needed to be for the cows, and it was the right amount of grass, but I had to do my numbers to pack up my judgment, and I just couldn't do it, and I ended up having a meltdown. It was about 10 minutes, I literally had a meltdown, crying and everything, and got up, wiped away the tears, looked at all the numbers again, decimal point was in the wrong spot.
Ugh.
And it was just something that simple that caused it, but it wasn't the only cause of it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Been other trouble through the day of cows calving and motorbikes with flat tyres and that sort of thing, and it's just problems compiling one on top of the other, and then I just couldn't get my maths right for this fence. I just had a complete meltdown. But to be fair, once I'd got up, wiped away the tears, and thought about life, I did feel a hell of a lot better. But sometimes it's just the very simple things that is the straw that breaks the camel's back.
So you endorse having a bit of a cry if you feel like you need it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I still do occasionally. It's one of those things. Not proud of it, not ashamed of it, but everyone. Sometimes that is what you need. Just get it off your chest. Even the clouds cry when they get heavy. It's so sometimes you can actually feel quite good afterwards, just letting off that bit of stress.
Kyle, what's that? What's that about? We have a cry and we feel better afterwards. What's going on there?
Oh, look, I think some of it is actually just if we get to that point, we're working quite hard not to do it. So there's the relief of actually letting go of that pressure to not express our feelings. But I don't. You can probably write on the back of a postage stamp how much I know about farming. But one thing I do know about is how harmful being isolated is. And it strikes me every time we talk about this, whether it's a guest in the show like Robbie tonight or whether it's callers, that isolation must, for a lot of people, make farming a really, really tough business. And I know that there's, people work at solving that and having connections and people that they catch up with, but a lot of the work is on your own. And if I think about that in terms of living in the city, I get concerned if my clients spend too much time without another human being to talk to, because it's just not good for us. And if we spend enough time with just the thoughts in our head, we can convince ourselves of just about anything, good, bad, or otherwise.
Well,
You're going to say something there, Robbie?
yeah, well, that's dead right. It's, when you're talking to yourself, it's not so bad. It's when you start answering yourself back and convincing yourself that, things, you can convince yourself anything, but sometimes you're convincing yourself of a whole lot of negative stuff that you don't need to, or that you shouldn't be, sort of convincing yourself of and thinking about. And it's just the isolation. And sometimes, just catch up and having a beer with a mate, they have a bit of a cry about life and that sort of thing, and they go home and feel so much better.
Lockdown last year. Now, we're not talking about the little Auckland lockdowns that we had. We had those earlier this year. It was quite nice. So didn't mind it. But last year, of course, you got put into this isolation, this thing that you've just spent time telling us is no good for country folk. It's that this isolation is being trapped away. So tell us, what was the reality like for you for it though?
Some parts of the isolation was quite good because a lot of the Joe public was isolated, so we still had trucks to drive and that sort of thing. So it was quite blissful out on the road without camper vans and townies cutting us off. So that was quite good. But sort of at home it was a bit different as well, because I couldn't just up and go into parts place to get parts for trucks or tractors or whatever. It was a wee bit harder trying to get parts, but we still got equipment fixed and built. And in the process of lockdown, I put a V8 engine in a 60-year-old Fordson Major tractor for something to do for the Mayfield tractor pulling.
Oh, so you hang on, just talk us through this. You took a V8 engine and put it in an old clanger.
Yeah.
And how did that work out for you?
It went quite well actually. It was one of those things. The tractor and the engine had sat at home for 18 months beforehand, and it's like it's like life as well, trying to formulate the best plan. And sometimes, even the best laid plans just don't quite happen. So through lockdown, me and my daughter cut the tractor in half, extended it a wee bit, and then dropped an V8 engine out of an old D-Series Ford truck into it. And right, we've got to join the engine to the gearbox and see how fast we can go. So, what would have been a 16k an hour tractor, 60 years ago is good for about 45, 50k an hour now. So it's been to a couple of events, Mayfield Tractor Pull, which I've been doing for the last few years, and I went to Wheels at Wanaka at Easter time, and it goes quite well for what it is.
So really what I'm hearing here is that you managed to navigate your isolation during lockdown by giving yourself a project.
Yep, and that's the best thing I found was we had a project to do, and half of the problems was actually getting some of the parts for it, but we got there. But it's one of those things, like sometimes you can actually be isolated in a group of people, and feeling lonely. You're feeling alone in a crowd of people, and it's a product of your environment sometimes. And it's like when we're in isolation, we had to make the best of a bad situation. So we cut a tractor in half and increased it from 60 horsepower to 215 horsepower. So now the next project is building a tractor pull sled and then a second tractor. So it's one of those things. It's just everyone deals with everything in different ways. And me and my daughter got stuck and built a tractor.
And how did she feel about it? Was she good to work with?
She wasn't too bad actually. She got in front of the camera a few times. All the years I've been doing videos, she wouldn't even hold a camera, let alone get in front of the camera. But when we the engine hadn't been running for a year or two, so we had to do the old cold start video, and she was in the video holding the jug of diesel up to get fuel through the system. So she found it quite tough as well, because I'm used to jumping in a truck seat and going out for the day, and sometimes not talking to anyone. Sometimes I get in a truck and I only talk to people when I stop and head down to Invercargill to do a load of fertiliser and talk to people and at a dairy for a couple of minutes and then unload, reload and come back. So I might talk to 3 or 4 people for the day. We have a daughter who's 20. Life's all about social media and socialising and having a few beers with her friends and jumping off couches and breaking collarbones and that sort of thing. So when she goes into isolation, it's actually quite hard for people like that. Where and it's like it would have been quite hard for people in urban areas to go into isolation as well. But a lot of the farmers are sort of used to that anyway. They, a lot of us out on the farms, that sort of thing, just, they still had their daily job to do, so they didn't notice it in as big a way as some of the, urban folk.
Well, with not being able to go and have a beers together down at the pub or whatever, to catch up, were people doing the old drinking over the Zoom, or were they giving each other a bit more of a phone call? Was there anything different that you guys did differently?
Yeah, probably just on Facebook and Messenger and that sort of thing. Just catching up with different people, and that was when you're building a tractor and you've got different ideas from different people. It's trying to get the best idea. Well, you can't just ring up a mate and say, "Hey mate, can you come around? We'll have a beer and we'll nut this out." You've actually got to do it through photos and phone calls and that sort of thing. And of course, what might be 50 centimetres long on a tape measure in a video call, looks a hell of a lot smaller. And it's just sometimes that perception of the whole thing. But the socialising was a lot harder.
How far is Waimate to Geraldine?
Be about an hour and a half.
Oh, it's not too far.
No,
Yeah.
not that far. You just don't, if you're there, you don't want to drink the water there.
What, in Waimate? Yeah. I've had some wild times in Waimate. Some wild times. It's been a while since I've actually been there, but they were wild when I was there. I got a text message here that I will read. It says, I want to call 1737, but after listening to the issues mental health services are having, I am reluctant. I have several major problems and am at present very emotional over the smallest issue. I feel my issue is not big enough to worry people about. This has been playing with my head since 1999. I want help, but then I don't know what I really want. So Kyle, when we are kind of talking about, and we talk about it not just on the show, it's in the news all the time, mental health services are in crisis. They're at breaking point. The system is broken. What kind of message are we sending to people then when we say, hey, it's all right, you can reach out, you can give 1737 a call, you can go and talk to your GP? It does start to feel a little bit hopeless. What do you think people should remember in this scenario?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, which is if it gets to the point where you feel like you need to talk to somebody, then that's always a good idea. And it may very well be the case that just calling 1737 and having a couple of yarns with someone and getting some perspective on what's going on is actually enough. And that's okay, because that's there, it's free. There's someone there to answer the phone or the text, and that's actually okay to use that. What is also true is that a lot of what we're talking about at the moment with pressure is at the most severe end. So it's people who are unwell enough that they need to essentially be locked in a secure ward and have people keep an eye on them. And what's also true is that there are actually a lot of services out there. There's a wide range of services, and what pressure looks like sometimes is just having to wait a bit. So it's not that they're not there, it's just that they're not necessarily there exactly when we need them. But to the texter, I would say, this seems like the central question for you to actually ask is, is what's going on for me serious enough, and how do I figure that out? And I think the only way we can figure that out is by talking it through with someone else. We can't do that inside our own head on our own either sometimes.
Good-o. Yes, Robbie.
I've actually, just on that is what I've got here, pen and piece of paper. Sometimes just writing stuff down, and writing the old pros and cons sort of thing about whether I build a tractor or that sort of thing. But over the years, when I've had issues going on in my head, I've just written notes, whether it's on a piece of paper or notes on my phone, and then look at them the next day and think, is that really an issue or is it not? And then you can sort of eliminate some of the smaller issues and think, I'm just overthinking that one. And or the other ones think, that is actually a bigger problem than I'm thinking it is, and I need to get help. And that's what I've found is just writing stuff out. And then it's when you go and talk to someone, you're not going through 100 issues with 50 of them non-issues sort of thing. You're actually going and seeing someone and using the time appropriately to deal with the most important issues. And it's just writing notes to yourself sort of thing.
It's almost like prioritising your thoughts, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps to get it out. That might be talking. It can just be writing. You call it notes. We call it journaling. But whatever works, right? And actually, I have a number of clients who, over the years, have gotten into the practice of writing things down during the week and then bringing that to therapy. Because, like you say, it's a good way to prioritise the time too, right? Just like any meeting.
Yeah, that's dead right.
Someone else has just texted in, just to follow up on the last text message I read out, and said, tell the texter that most people feel like they do about calling. And if you don't click with the first counsellor, just call again and you'll get someone new.
This is the Nutters Club, thanks to New Zealand On Air on Newstalk ZB.
Welcome back to the show. Previously on the Nutters Club, we were joined by Robbie Shepherd, aka the Ghost Rooter from Geraldine. He's been talking to us about his story, really about how he managed to step out from behind the camera and start being able to speak to community groups all over the place about mental health, and more specifically about rural mental health. As we know, sometimes it's more about the messenger than it is about the message. And he's had a huge feedback coming back to him, and he's been sharing some of his insights with us tonight, and really brought a lot of it down to what he called location, aka isolation. And it turns out that isolation can happen obviously with geographical distances that get put between people, especially in the rural areas. But isolation is something that we also suffer from even in our urban areas. It's about having that community and that connection, and sometimes these things go out the window, and it's not a great way for it to manifest its way for us when we are having trouble wrestling with the thoughts in our minds. Very good thing that Robbie did talk about, though, that he says is a really good thing that he does. So he likes to write down a lot of his thoughts and where they're going, and sort of allow yourself to prioritise them. And our psychotherapist here, Coleman-Ross, he's still in the studio, he ended up telling us that he even has a lot of clients that bring him their thoughts that they've been writing down. So it seems as though the pen is still mightier than the sword when it comes to battling mental health. Anyway, Kyle and Robbie are in the studio with me now, and we're welcoming your phone calls, 0800 80 10 80, or the text messages, 9292. Robbie, I've got another text message for you. It just says, good to hear you putting it out there, Robbie. Brent in Temuka.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, well, that's one of those things that the more people that talk about it, the more it's not frowned upon. And it's like when I was, younger, I knew there was, a particular person had an issue, mental health issue, and it wasn't until 25 years later I was talking to a driver at rural transport where I was, and I could see where this package was headed, and I said, such and such used to live there. And then, he went and told me the rest of the story. We knew that this person had problems, but they found her out middle of the night one night. She went walkabout, butt naked in the irrigation ditch, clucking like a chicken. So it's just, it's the more
Wow, okay.
It's the more that it gets talked about, the more it's, socially acceptable. But the biggest thing is, like my brothers, when I had my issues, brothers would come in there, a bit of, hard case like me. Hey, Robbie, how's it going? How's the mental health? They cared enough to ask, but they asked in that sarcastic way that they didn't care.
Right.
And that's, and sometimes, they just feel like they're doing the right thing, where, sometimes it's just, you look at it and think, why even open your mouth sometimes?
Well, look, as we like to say on the show, secrets keep us sick. And so if we talk about these things, then we have them out there, right?
Well, our biggest addiction, I don't know about you two, but I believe our biggest addiction is talking about our problems in life. And if everyone stopped talking about their problems and talked about the positives in life, we might actually, then we're all focused on the positives. Like when I was building the Fords, and I could sit there and dwell on, how am I going to join this engine to the gearbox and turn everything into a problem? But you look on the positive side of it, and think, well, hang on, if I do this, this, and this, it's going to go really, really fast. And it's just, it's one of those things. I believe our biggest addiction is talking about our problems rather than the positives in life.
Interesting insight.
The Nutters Club on Newstalk ZB.
Hey, welcome back to the show. My name's Hamish, Coleman-Ross, and in the studio with me, he's been here all evening and he's still here. He's a psychotherapist, Kyle MacDonald.
They haven't let me out yet.
It's coming. Don't worry, we'll take the ankle thing off you in a moment. And of course, our guest, Robbie Shepherd, aka the Goose Rooter from Geraldine, who's been sharing his work with us. Really, we've had Robbie on the show before, where we got his story, and this tonight we've really just been sharing his work. Robbie, just before we kind of wrap up the show, you've now kind of gone from being able to, being able to make these videos, now talking to people in the community, and now you're getting invited to, commentate for sports events and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's all a bit nuts in and of itself, isn't it?
Well, it is actually. It's as they say, as one door opens, as one door closes, another door opens, and it's just one of those things. It's like we had the flooding last week or the week before, and
You made the news.
oh, I made the news quite a few times apparently. But we knew farmers out there were having a hard time. Just they'd lost half their farm and that sort of thing, and it's bad enough. So we went out and actually done some T-shirts. And $30 of each sale of the T-shirts, is going to go to the farmers, and that actually proved quite popular.
When you say it goes to the farmers, what does that mean?
Well, the $30 of each sale will go to Rural Support Trust, and then they'll distribute it accordingly, whether it's for fencing, farming, family, wellbeing, and that sort of thing. So my graphics team at Sign Spot Graphics in Geraldine has got behind it, and it's we're learning curve for me of I've always just sent them T-shirts and said, hey, can you do this for me? But now when you get orders of a couple of hundred T-shirts, it's like, we need all hands on deck. And it's
Couple of hundred.
Oh yeah, there's been a good couple of hundred T-shirts gone out the door already.
That's fantastic.
So,
well done.
It's just one of those things. It's I can't do a lot to help everybody. I can do what I can do, and one of these things was Saskia at Science Spot Graphics. It's I've got this design I want to put on a T-shirt, but I need someone to market it. It's like, oh yeah, I know a guy who does some videos, and so we done that, and then had a phone call. Lovely person from out Mackenzie Basins. Oh, we're seeing a video promoting these T-shirts. We want you to come and commentate some the Mackenzie Buckles. It's a rodeo type of event, so I've got 4 of them to do, and then people go, can you come and talk to our groups about life and trucks and machinery and that sort of thing. So it's actually from one video years ago, just talking about life. Well, there's other dumb ones in the workshop taking the mickey out of Kenworth drivers, but it's just it's sort of snowballed in a way that I wasn't actually expecting it to ever go, and it's quite good, to be fair.
Could you ever think about what would have happened if you'd made that video, that first video all those years ago, and then rather than put it out onto social media, you'd hit delete?
I had thought about it a few times, and to be fair, there's quite a few videos I've actually done and I've deleted. And sometimes in a video, well, with anything, you get one word wrong, and it's the big difference. I was down at Wheels at Wanaka, I took the Fordson down there, and we had issues with the tractor pull sled. So the guy who knew what he was doing was out fixing the sled, and I was commentating the tractor pulling event, and it was all quite good until I got one word wrong, and it was the main word of the main sponsor's name. So everyone got all up in arms about it. So and that's one of the things. I have deleted a lot of videos because it's one word that I've got wrong can change the whole thing. So I've had to delete them and do again. And it's one thing I'm pleased I did actually do was actually post it. The amount of people that have come out of the woodwork and sent me messages and that sort of thing, stopped in and seen me at home, and or caught up for lunch or a beer and that sort of thing. It's something I never thought would happen.
And I think it really comes to the point, doesn't it, that there is nothing happens until somebody takes an action, right? Yeah. But not only did you do it, and rather than succumbing to the fear of all the things that could have gone wrong, and hey, could have been, people might have taken the wrong tack. They might have, seen you in the community and, pointed at you.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's Robbie the nutter. All these kind of the worst fears. And we think about these things, don't we? But the other thing is, and this is what I would say to people listening tonight, is that what about when things go right? The fact that it actually, it resonated, it helped people.
Yeah, well, that's dead right. Like everything in life's a gamble. And it's one of those things. I've had a lot of people ask me to do videos on different things, different topics and that sort of thing. And I'll just, that's too political. That's going to go. If it goes good, it's going to go good. But if it goes pear-shaped, it's going to, sort of ruin me sort of thing. So I'll just steer clear of them. So I'll just sort of, stick to things that I know better than making stuff up.
Sounds like you've got a lot on your plate. But with all that said, what are the things you have on the horizon? You strike me as a man who's probably got some sort of crazy idea cooking away in the back of his mind there?
I've got lots of crazy ideas. First thing, I've actually got knee surgery again in a couple of weeks, so that'll be the 6th time, I think. So that's the worst thing for mental health and that sort of thing, as well as pain. And then you're taking, lots of different painkillers and that sort of thing, and sometimes it can just make it worse. One of the big things I have actually got onto was the CBD oil and THC oil, and I haven't had tramadol, codeine and all that sort of stuff for over a month. So, the cannabis oil, CBD oil, hasn't fixed the problem. It's always going to be a problem, but it's just replaced all the other pharmaceutical drugs, and I actually feel better for ditching them.
And I think we should say you've been obtaining this legally.
Oh, absolutely, yes, through the cannabis clinic.
That's an important point.
Yes. Yeah, we don't want any assumptions.
Yeah, no, that's all done, through the cannabis clinic, which is all online, and that's made a big difference. So I get my knee fixed, and then I got another tractor to build and tractor pull sled to build, and there's a few projects. But
is there such a thing as too many tractors?
No, absolutely not.
I thought you'd say that.
It's the same as, is there too many trucks? Well, there's too many Kenworths, yes. But as far as everything else, no. You can never, ever have too many toys. Yeah, and it's one of the things, if you've got one toy and you get it going, get an old tractor and you get it going and it's perfectly painted and that sort of thing, what am I going to do today? Oh, no, it's finished, done. If you've got 10 things that are half done, there's always something that you can go out and carry on with, isn't there? And you get in at the end of the day and, oh yeah, I've achieved something for today. You feel so much better about yourself.
Totally.
So I've got a few wee things coming up, and Mackenzie Buckle, that's going to be interesting because I've done a bit of commentating, but never a horse event. So that is going to be all trial and error. But the biggest thing that's on the plate at the moment is the t-shirts for the farmers to help them out. So if you're listening and you want to support the farmers, SignSpotGraphics.com and Geraldine, go and have a look. And actually there's some Goose Rooter t-shirts and that sort of thing you can get done as well.
Robbie Shepherd, thank you so much for being with us on the show tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you all the way from Geraldine.
Thanks for the invite.
Kyle MacDonald, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Thanks to our producers tonight, Boris and Jimmy. Thanks also to Pip Hayes, who does our podcast. Thanks very much to New Zealand On Air for picking up the bills and Newstalk ZB for letting us in the door. But most of all, thanks to you for listening. Remember, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself. I look forward to your company next week here on the Nutters Club.
This is the Nutters Club, thanks to New Zealand On Air on Newstalk ZB.